dad came from a family that was farmers in Germany. And kind of amazing to go from being really more or less, you know, a farm boy and the son of somebody who was a kind of I guess an accountant and a businessman. Kind of amazing to go from that to having a degree in physics, to doing research, which he really loved, but then also actually being in charge not just of a lab and research, but really in charge of the whole night vision division and being able to work with all sorts of people and really translate a lot of the work into actual products. So the one we always quote is the night vision goggles. Sort of really the invention of the night vision goggles, I think, was an amazing thing. And some of the other work, he helped people do well. He provided leadership and structure. So it wasn't just his research or anything, but it's really encouraging the other people. I would say getting people to work together to fulfill a common aim. Very important, actually, when you move up in a position.
I don't know whether it was the greatest challenge, but it was one challenge, since we lived in one place and he had his work in another place. The weekly commute to unite, so to speak, and to be up to date on his work, and because that was, you know, his life's project, to combine those two things. I think that, in my opinion, was the biggest challenge. What do you think?
And for my father to work at Fort Monmouth, and I believe it originally was a one-year contract only, and then he liked it a lot, and he renewed. And my mother actually worked there also for about a year or a year and a half as a physics researcher after I was born and before my younger brother was born. And then they built a house. My dad actually built a house in Manasquan at the time, and then
he actually built it with his hands.
Himself,
yes.
And that house became too small because more kids were born. And then my parents bought a property in Wall Township, which was a township at the time, and it had a rural delivery route for a long time as an address. A 7-acre property, so a lot of land. They designed their house. He did an awful lot of work on that house too, but he loved that place, and they called it Little Bavaria. And you know, he bought a tractor, had a huge garden. You could do everything out there. So he farmed. And he loved that. So I will say, when he was not working here, you know, he would be out in the garden or working on some kind of project. So we planted grapes one year, and one year made wine, for example. It's just sort of lots of ideas and things floating around. Then they planted nut trees. We planted some pine trees. There was a lot of land there, and he really, really loved that. And I have to say, we weren't so crazy about that because you would spend every afternoon in the summer watering the garden. It was a lot of work for a kid. But in retrospect, it was fantastic. I mean, it was a great place. It is a great place. And the one is of how my dad started as a researcher. He started as a physics researcher at Camp Evans there, that was part of Fort Monmouth, and then this other place called the Hexagon, which actually is more or less a hexagon-shaped building. And when I was pretty young, like in grade school and then middle school, occasionally he would come home, and he had shirts that had little pinhole burn marks, so they like as if you would put out a cigarette on them. But that isn't what they were. What they were is from lasers, because they were doing laser research, and I think sometimes they didn't know where they were, and they did not realize they were in the way until your shirt starts smoking. So a little disconcerting, but a little disconcerting in retrospect. But there were several shirts like this. He loved his family. He loved his family. I think my mother would say he didn't spend enough time at home, and it's true that work was his mistress. But he also loved his grandkids.
Yes. That was what I said. You know, sometimes to people, yeah, my husband has a mistress in his work.